Hello, boys and girls. Today we're going to continue our study of geometry. And the cool thing about geometry is you can see it all around us in our world. So you look at a house with windows and you see rectangles and squares. You can look at the floor in a classroom and you can see tiles that look like squares. And today we're going to study parallel lines, which you also can find all around you in the world. So we're going to start with some real world examples of parallel lines, just so you can get an idea of what they look like. So definition of parallel lines is parallel lines are straight lines that are always the same distance apart from one another. So if you look at this picture of the lines on this highway, those yellow lines are always going to stay the same distance from one another, and so are the white lines on the edge of the road. So that means they're always going to be a certain distance apart. They would never start to go like this, because then they would be closer at the top than they are at the bottom. These are not parallel lines, these are. So the yellow lines down the center of a road are a really good example of parallel lines. Another good example of parallel lines is, let's see here. There you go. Railroad tracks are another good example of parallel lines. And if those tracks weren't parallel, well, the train driving down the tracks would jump the tracks because the wheels wouldn't stay on them. So those railroad tracks are always going to stay the same distance apart. They're straight, and they will always stay the same distance apart. A third example of parallel lines in the real world, and this is for all you football players out there and football lovers. I know Tayden and Bronx play football. The yard lines on a football field. So if you look at this picture of the football field, those lime green lines that are highlighted, those are parallel lines. Again, they're always the same distance apart. So those are some examples of parallel lines in the real world. And now we are going to look at parallel lines in shapes, because that's what we're studying. We're studying geometry. So I'm going to open up a new window here with our worksheet. Hopefully you have your worksheet there with you. Okay. And we have 16 shapes, a 4x4 array of shapes. So there's 16 shapes. And then we are going to look at each shape and decide if it has parallel lines, and then cut and paste it under the correct heading on the recording sheet. Now, I know some of you may not have scissors at home, so I'm going to take a minute here and we are going to label each shape with a number. I think you have a copy at home that actually has the shapes with numbers on them. So if that's the case, you would not have to stop and label yours. But if yours doesn't have to be labeled, go ahead and label it with me. So we're going to just label them 1 to 16 going across. It's important that we all label them the same way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And as we go through these shapes to see if it has parallel lines, each one we're going to look at some other attributes it has. This is really our last lesson on geometry this week. You're going to be doing an exit ticket. And so the exit ticket is going to really assess you on a lot of the different attributes of geometric figures that you've learned this week. So we're going to kind of do a little review as we go through these shapes here as well. Okay. So we have 16 shapes, and I've numbered all mine, and I hope you have numbered yours as well, unless you have them cut out. All right. So remember, parallel lines are lines that are straight and they're never going to meet. They're the same distance apart. So if you have a crayon, that's great. I think I sent a message to your parents to try to have you have 2 different colored crayons. So we're going to look at our first shape. It is a rectangle. It has 4 sides. So it's called a quadrilateral. Very good. It's called a quadrilateral because quad means 4. It's also a polygon because it is closed and it has straight sides. All right. Also has 4 right angles. If you remember that, these square corners are the right angles. So a lot of attributes this shape has. So my first set of parallel lines, I'm going to look here, and this looks like the railroad tracks, this one and this one. So you can't just say a parallel line. You have to have 2 to make a set of parallel lines. So that's one set in the green. But if I look at that shape, I can certainly see a second set of parallel lines. The ones that run like this are also a set of parallel lines. Now, it is important for you to note that this line here, this green one, that pink one, are not parallel lines because you can see they meet right there in the corner. And those, because they make a square corner or right angle, are actually called perpendicular lines, which you'll learn more about next year. All right, so we're going to take number 1 and we're going to write number 1 in here. We're going to write number 1. And next to it, I'm going to write 2 sets because it has 2 sets of parallel lines. So if you're writing, I would like you to write that as well. Okay, let's look at number 2. And number 2 is a triangle, 3-sided triangle, and it has no sets of parallel lines. So over here, we are going to write shape 2. And we don't have to write no parallel sides because the caption on the top of that column says no parallel sides. Let's look at number 3. Number 3, we all know is a circle. You've been learning that since probably pre-K. But is it a polygon? Well, you're right. It is not a polygon because it has curved sides. So now we're going to look at it. It's a polygon, or it's not a polygon, but does it have parallel lines? Well, it has no straight sides that are equidistant apart. So we're going to put number 3 over here in the no parallel side column. Let's go on to number 4. We can identify that as a star. It's a lot of lines, and I'm trying to trace it with my arrow here to see if I can find any that are parallel. And it looks like they all come and meet at some point. So I would say number 4 has no parallel lines, and I hope you would agree with me. Okay, let's look at number 5. All right, this looks like we might have found some parallel lines. Again, it's a 4-sided figure, so it's called a quadrilateral. It's also a polygon because it's closed and it has straight sides. Now, this does not have right angles, so it's not a rectangle. All right, so we're going to identify the parallel lines, and then we're going to see if we can name the shape. So here's one set of parallel lines, the railroad tracks that run across the top and the bottom, and then actually has another set of parallel lines. And even though they're slanted, they are still the same distance apart, and they are straight. So it has 2 sets of parallel sides. And perhaps you've heard this before. A quadrilateral with 2 sets of parallel sides is called a polygon. So it has 2 sets of parallel sides. So we're going to write shape 5 here, and we're going to write 2 sets next to that. And the pink and the green identify the 2 sets. Okay, let's go on to shape number 6. And let's count the number of sides on this shape. Looks like it has more than 4. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 sides. It's not a quadrilateral because quadrilaterals have 4 sides. If I remember correctly, pent means 5. So this is a pentagon. It's a 5-sided shape. Does have a couple right angles, and I'm going to go ahead and draw those square corners in so you can see them. This right here is a right angle, and this right here is a right angle. It has some other angles here and here and here, but those are not right angles. Now let's check it out. Does it have any parallel lines? Well, I think I see a set of parallel lines. See if you can identify it. Okay, hopefully you found this one here and this one here. There's your railroad tracks. Has 1 set of parallel lines. So I'm going to go to my column sheet, and I am going to write over here that this is shape 6, and it has 1 set of parallel lines. All right. Okay, let's go on to number 7. Okay, number 7, I'm looking at it. I certainly see railroad tracks going this way. So it has 1 set of parallel lines. Let's check out these other sides here. I'm going to change to my pink highlighter, and I say, are they parallel? Well, look what happens. This one is slanted like this. It's definitely straight. And this one is slanted like this. So if I keep drawing them, because there are lines and lines go on and on in either direction, they eventually meet. So those are not parallel lines. So shape 7 has 1 set of parallel lines. And because it has one set of parallel lines, it's has a special name, and it's called a trapezoid. So it is a quadrilateral because it has 4 sides, has no right angles. Okay. All right, let's go on to number 8. And I bet you guys can identify those parallel lines there. So hopefully you identified this set of parallel lines, those railroad tracks, and then it has another set right here. So it's 4-sided, it's a quadrilateral, also has 4 right angles, okay? Because it has 2 sets of parallel sides, it is also called a parallelogram, okay? 4 sets of parallel sides is called a parallelogram because parallel is the base word, and so it's important to note that that's probably one of the most important attributes of a parallelogram. It needs to have 2 sets of parallel sides. So we're going to write shape 8 in this column, and we will say it has 2 sets of parallel sides. Okay, let's go on to shape 9. I'm going to let you work on that one too before I identify the parallel sides. Okay, this is a 4-sided figure, so it is a quadrilateral, and hopefully you found 2 sets of parallel sides. There's one set. I'm going to change my color to identify the other set. Because it has 2 sets of parallel sides, we're going to call it a parallelogram. Because all the sides are equal, you can also call it a rhombus. So number 9 is a quadrilateral. It's a parallelogram. It's a rhombus, has 2 sets of parallel lines. Okay. Let's go on to number 10. Okay, number 10, I'm hoping you found this one set of parallel lines. They're not the same length, but if we draw them here, they definitely are the same distance apart. So it has one set of parallel lines. It's 4-sided, so it is a quadrilateral. And because it only has one set of parallel lines, we're going to call it a trapezoid. Okay, so number 10 definitely goes in the column that says one or more sets of parallel sides, and we're going to call it one set. Okay, let's go on to number 11. Take a minute and look at that. Okay. It is a triangle, 3 sides. Actually has a right angle there, and hopefully you were able to see that. I'm going to draw that in. There's the right angle right there. Okay, but does it have any parallel lines? Well, this line right here intersects with this one, and this line right here also intersects with this one. There are no railroad tracks in that shape, so we're going to put number 11 over here in the no parallel sides column. Okay, number 12, it's a heart, and is it a polygon? You're right, it is not a polygon because it has curved sides, and it has no straight lines that never meet, so it has no parallel sides. We're going to put it in the right-hand column here. Number 13 is an oval. Again, it's not a polygon because it has curved sides, and it has no straight sides for sure, so we're going to put that over here in the no parallel sides column. Okay, let's look at number 14. That deserves some special time with it. Let's count the number of sides first. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 sides. So we would call it a pentagon, right? It is a polygon because it's closed and has straight sides. Do you remember, was there another pentagon on this page? Right, number 6 was also a pentagon. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They don't really look that similar, but they both have 5 sides, and that's the distinguishing characteristic of a pentagon. So now let's look at this. Any parallel sides? Well, I'm going to get my highlighter here, and I'm going to say, geez, see if I can find any. I'm going to try one here, and maybe, I don't know, this one here. But look what happens if I extend those, straight line, they intersect. So those are not parallel lines. Okay, well, what about if I tried this one and maybe this one? They look like they might be close. Again, if I extend them, They eventually meet. They don't stay the same distance apart. So those are not parallel sides. So I think we've analyzed this enough to determine that 14 has no parallel sides. So we're going to write number 14 over here. Okay, 15 is an easy shape. It's a square. It's a quadrilateral. It's a polygon. It has 4 right angles, and all the sides are equal. So when all the sides are equal, boys and girls, we call that a regular polygon. So 15 is an example of a regular polygon. And the first set of parallel lines I'm going to identify are the ones that go up and down, and the second set will be the ones that go from side to side. 2 sets of parallel lines. So that was pretty easy. Let's go ahead and write shape number 15 in this column, and right next to it 2 sets. All right, and then last but not least, we got this kind of funny looking star here, 4-pointed star. I think we could trace those lines, but they all seem to intersect. So I don't think we're going to find any that are parallel. So we would write number 16 over here in this column. And now we have sorted all of our shapes, boys and girls. And I hope you have a better understanding of what a set of parallel lines is. And if you need to, go back and rewatch the video, pause it if I'm going too fast for you. And thank you for joining me today with our lesson on parallel lines.